The fact that not everyone has equal access to technology and the internet. And this disparity became glaringly obvious when schools shifted online and remote work became the norm.
Right, because suddenly those without access were at a huge disadvantage. They couldn't participate in online learning, they couldn't work from home, they couldn't even stay connected with friends and family.
It really exposed the inequalities that already existed in our society, and the
Mhm.
document argues that this is a major problem that needs to be addressed if we want to create a more equitable world.
Absolutely.
Right.
Because internet access is no longer a luxury, it's a necessity. It's essential for education, for healthcare, for economic opportunity, for civic engagement, for so many aspects of modern life.
And it's not just about access either. It's also about digital literacy, having the skills and knowledge to navigate the online world safely and effectively.
Because technology can be a powerful tool, but it can also be dangerous if you don't know how to use it properly.
And the document even brings up the challenges of virtual colleges. While online learning can be beneficial, it's not a perfect replacement for the traditional campus experience.
Right, there's something to be said for the social interaction, the hands-on learning, the sense of community that comes with being on a physical campus.
And for some students, that lack of social connection can be really detrimental to their learning and their overall well-being.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the document doesn't stop there. It goes on to explore some of the unintended consequences of our increasing reliance on technology, like the environmental impact of all those data centers and the potential for increased space debris from all the satellites being launched into orbit.
It's like we're trying to solve one problem, but creating new ones in the process. And
Yeah.
it makes you wonder if there's a way to find a more sustainable balance.
There has to be. But it's going to require some serious thought and effort from all of us.
And speaking of unintended consequences, the document also points out that the rapid sharing of scientific information during the pandemic wasn't always a good thing.
Right, because there was so much pressure to get information out quickly that some of the research that was being shared hadn't been thoroughly vetted.
So it's like too much information too fast can actually be harmful because it can lead to the spread of misinformation and false hope.
Which is why it's so important to be critical of the information we're consuming and to make sure it's coming from reliable sources.
And to always double check those sensational headlines before we share them with everyone we know.
Exactly. Because once something's out there on the internet, it can be really hard to take it back.
And on a more personal level, the document also tackles the issue of technology addiction. We were all spending so much time online during lockdown, working, learning, socializing, escaping, that it's no surprise that some people developed unhealthy habits.
Yeah, it was easy to get sucked into the endless scroll of social media or to lose track of time playing video games. And for some people, that became a real problem.
The document acknowledges that there are positive aspects to gaming, like its ability to connect people and provide a sense of community. But it also warns against excessive gaming, which can lead to social isolation, sleep deprivation, and even physical health problems.
It's all about finding that balance, which can be tough when technology is so readily available and so intertwined with our daily lives. Think about how much we touch our phones and computers throughout the day. And then we touch our faces, our food, our loved ones. It's kind of gross when you think about it.
The document points out that research has found healthcare workers' phones to be potential carriers of nosocomial pathogens, which are infections acquired in hospitals.
So it's a good reminder to sanitize our devices regularly, especially if we're using them in public places or around people who are vulnerable to infection.
And speaking of physical health, the document also connects the dots between increased screen time and a whole host of health issues like obesity, cardiovascular disease, and even digital eye strain.
It's that whole sitting is the new smoking argument applied to our digital habits. We're spending more time sitting in front of screens than ever before, and our bodies are paying the price.
Headaches, blurred vision, neck pain, back pain. These are just some of the common complaints associated with excessive screen time.
And it's not just adults who are affected. Kids are spending more time on screens too, which can have negative impacts on their development and their overall health.
So it's clear that there are both pros and cons to our increasing reliance on technology, and it's important to be aware of both sides of the coin.
Absolutely, because technology is a tool. And like any tool, it can be used for good or for bad. It's up to us to decide how we want to use it.
Wow, so we've really gone deep on this, haven't we? From the ways technology helped us through the lockdown to the potential downsides, it's been quite a journey.
It has. And I think it highlights just how complex our relationship with technology is, especially in times of crisis.
Totally. It's not a simple good versus bad situation. It's much
Yeah.
more nuanced than that.
Exactly. And that's what the document's conclusion really emphasizes, this duality of technology. its potential for both good and harm.
Like it's a tool. And like any tool, it can be used for different purposes.
Right. It all comes down to how we choose to wield it and the choices we make as individuals, as a society, as a global community.
And one of the key takeaways for me is this idea that technology often acts as an amplifier. It doesn't necessarily create new problems, but it can make existing ones much more pronounced.
Oh, absolutely. Like the digital divide we talked about.
Yeah.
That was already a major issue before the pandemic. But when everything shifted online, those without access were left even further behind.
It's like the pandemic threw a spotlight on those inequalities, and it made it impossible to ignore them.
Exactly. And that's why the document argues so strongly for internet access as a basic human right in the 21st century.
Because it's no longer a luxury. It's essential for education, for healthcare, for economic opportunity, for participating in modern society.
It's fundamental.
Yeah.
And we need to start treating it that way.
I completely agree. And it's not just about access either. It's also about digital literacy, about having the skills and knowledge to navigate the online world safely and effectively.
Because technology can be incredibly empowering, but it can also be dangerous if you don't know how to use it properly.
We need to equip everyone with the tools to critically evaluate information, to protect their privacy, to use technology in a way that benefits them and doesn't harm them.
It's about empowering people, not just giving them access.
I like that. Empowering people. That feels like a good way to frame it. And, despite all the challenges, the document does end on a somewhat optimistic note.
Oh yeah, there's that one line that really stood out to me. Digital technology does not alienate, but accommodates all.
That's powerful. It suggests that technology, when used thoughtfully, can actually be a force for inclusion and connection.
Think about how people use technology during the lockdown to stay connected with loved ones, to build communities online, to participate in virtual events.
It opened up all these new possibilities for interaction and engagement.
It's like we were forced to find new ways to be together, even when we were physically apart.
And maybe those connections were even stronger because we were all going through this shared experience.
There's definitely something to be said for that. And the document also highlights the importance of learning from this experience about the potential for remote work, about the need for digital literacy, about the ways technology can help us address global challenges.
It's like we went through this massive experiment, and now we need to analyze the results and figure out what works, what doesn't, and how we can do better in the future.
Exactly. Because the pandemic may be over, but our reliance on technology isn't going away anytime soon.
So it's up to us to shape that future, to make sure that technology is used for good, to create a world that's more equitable, more connected, and more just for everyone.
Well said. I couldn't agree more.
Well, that about wraps up our deep dive into the impact of digital technology during the COVID-19 lockdown. I hope you found it as thought-provoking as we did.
And as always, we want to hear from you. What were your own experiences with technology during that time? Did it help you more or hinder you? Share your thoughts with us online using our show's hashtag.
And be sure to join us next time for another deep dive into a fascinating topic. Until then, stay curious, keep exploring, and thanks for listening.